Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamna Tira Anachari Jamna Tira Panachari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadhari Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamna Tira Banachari Jamna Tira Banachari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavendra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavendra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavendra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Govinday, 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 Jai Govinday. Jai Radha Partati Radha Partati Radhe. Jai Sita Ram Lakshmana Hanuman, Jai Sita Ram Lakshmana Hanuman. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Asvatara Sadasri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Chandra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Maharaj ki Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki Shri Shri Radha Partha Sarthi ki Lalita Vishaka ki Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman ki और Samkirtaniya Kya ki Transcendental Book Distribution ki all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Shri Karnada. Hare Krishna. So I give class in. Are these foreigners, are they Russian speaking or English speaking? Сио русский, сио английский.
Вот в углу там перевод.
You're English or Russian? Should I speak in English or Hindi? Malay English? Huh? Huh? I was playing. Huh? Uh-huh. I'm confused. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. कितने भक्तों को अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आएगी? कितने भक्तों को अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आती? और माताओं में कितने भक्तों को अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आती? So what to do? तो जो इंग्लिश नहीं समझते वो पीछे बैठ सकते हैं। और माताओं के लिए श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 4 चैप्टर 9 टेक्स्ट 38 to 41 है ना? आप इंग्लिश समझते हो? और माताओं के लिए कौन ट्रांसलेट कर रहा है? Text 38. Although he could not believe the words of the messenger, he had full faith in the words of the great sage Narada. Thus he was greatly overwhelmed by the news, and he immediately offered the messenger a highly valuable necklace in great satisfaction. Because they Hindi में बोल रहे हैं. Text 39:40. Then King Uttanapad, being very eager to see the face of his lost son, mounted a chariot drawn by excellent horses and bedecked with golden filigrines, taking with his many learned brahmanas all the elderly personalities of his family, his officers, his ministers, and his immediate friends. He immediately left the city. As he proceeded in this parade, there were auspicious sounds of conch shell, kettle drums, flutes, and the chanting of Vedic mantras to indicate all good fortune. Text 41. Suniti Surichi Chasya Maheshyo Rukma Bhushite Aruya Shibikam Shardam Utamena Jagmato Suniti Surichi Chasya Maheshyo Rukma Bhushite Aruya Shibikam Shardham Vatamena Jagmatu Suniti Surichi Chasya Maheshyo Rukma Bhushite Aruya Shibikam Shardham Utmamena Jagmatu Suniti Surichi Chasya Maheshyo Rukma Bhushite Aruya Shibikam Shardham Utmamena Jagmatu. Mataji's Suniti, Queen Suniti. Surichi, Queen Surichi. Cha, also. Asya, of the king. Maheshyo, queens. Rukma Bhushite, being decorated with golden ornaments. Aruya, getting on. Sivikam, a palanquin. Ardham, along with. Uttamamena, the king's other son. Uttama. Abhijagmatu, all proceeded along. Both the queens of King Uttanapad, namely Suniti and Surichi, along with his other sons Uttama, appeared in the procession. The queens were seated on a palanquin, responsibly. तो आप देखेंगे आप लोग की अंग्रेजी इतनी अच्छी है, कितनी अच्छी है. Both the queens of King Uttanapad, namely Suniti and Surichi, along with his other son Uttama, appeared in the procession. The queens were seated on a palanquin. Quoted by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. After the departure of Dhruva Maharaj from the palace, the king was very afflicted, but by the kind words of Sri Narada, he was partially satisfied. He could understand the great fortune of his wife Suniti and the great misfortune of Surichi, for these facts were certainly very open in the palace. But still, when the news reached the palace that Dhruva Maharaj was returning, his mother Suniti, out of her great compassion and due to being the mother of a great Vaishnava, did not hesitate to take the other wife Surichi and her son Uttama on the same palanquin. That was the greatness of King Suniti, the mother of the great Vaishnava, Dhruva Maharaj. Om Gyan Timinandasya Gyanandava Agamidandena Tasman Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Savitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajevam Savadhutam Krishna Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Sakanatam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Taptam Radhe Vancha Kalpatarvasa Tapta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Hare Krishna Suniti Surichi Chasya Mahesho Rukma Bhushite Ruya Shibikam Sardham Atma Mena Vi Jagmatu. Sumitra Rishi is describing the return of the great devotee Dhruva Maharaj and the welcome that he received, that he was going to receive. Dhruva's father, King Uttanapad, was very much aggrieved that because of his excessive attachment to his wife Surichi, his young boy left home. As we know, Dhruva, when young, was trying to sit on his father's lap because he saw his stepbrother Uttama sitting on the father's lap. So when he tried to sit on the father's lap, the father was very attached to Surichi. Suniti was the older wife and Surichi was the younger wife. So he was very attached to Surichi. And Surichi had a certain amount of envy against her stepson. Envy is one of the anarthas. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that as long as envy is there, the Lord will never reside. Therefore, on the spiritual path, one is advised not to develop envy. There is something known as spiritual envy. There is material envy and spiritual envy. Material envy is you don't want to see anyone make progress. You see someone has something, you feel envious, you criticize. Spiritual envy is you see someone doing some seva, you try to do the seva better. That is spiritual envy. You don't feel like criticizing, but you just take inspiration from the other person's surrender and you try to do better. But Surichi, she had material envy. She did not want to see her stepson sit on his father's lap. So with very harsh words, she told him, unless you have the fortune of taking birth from my womb, you can't sit on your father's lap. So go and perform austerities to get the mercy of the Lord. But what she indirectly indicated was, you die now, give up your body, then you take another, if you're fortunate, if you have the mercy of the Lord, you will take birth from my womb, then you can sit on your father's lap. Dhruva was very offended. And as we read in the previous chapter, Dhruva proceeded to the Madhuvan forest on the advice of Narada Muni. When Surichi chastised Dhruva, Narada Muni was not in the palace. The other servants were there, and all the servants heard the heavy chastisement. But when Dhruva was determined to look for God, Dhruva's mother Suniti said, what his stepmother said is true. I am very unfortunate. You must get the mercy of the Lord. And how can you get the mercy of the Lord? By performing austerities. Dhruva was determined. He thought that my stepmother has insulted me so badly. I will please the Lord and then ask the Lord for a material benediction. And the benediction was, I may have a kingdom that nobody's ever had in my family. That was his desire. But he knew one thing, that if I want this benediction, I should get the mercy of the Lord. Hiranyakashipu had a very ambitious plan. He wanted to become immortal. He wanted to become immortal. But he knew that if I want this benediction, if I want this, I must get the blessings of Lord Brahma. So he was performing great austerities. So Dhruva also was performing austerities. He was ready to perform austerities. And when the Lord who is in the heart, Sarvasya Cham Hirdi Sanivisto, Mataha Smriti Jnanam Apahanam Cha. When the Lord saw that this boy when the Lord saw it's okay. When the Lord saw that his boy was very sincere, because Narada Muni tested him, isn't it? Narada Muni said, come on, this is not the age to look for God, this is the age to go and play. But Dhruva said, if you're ready to help me find God, I'll talk to you. Otherwise, no. Just like in our ISKCON movement, before somebody gets Diksha, he gets tested for a few years to see how sincere he is. So Narada Muni also tested Dhruva. And Krishna saw that Dhruva was determined to look for God. So then Krishna sent him Narada Muni. Krishna is in the heart. When he sees that we are sincere about spiritual life, then Krishna gives us the desired guidance. And the desired guidance comes either through the medium of a sadhu or a grantha sadhu, or through a book. So Dhruva took Narada Muni's advice, chanted the mantra given by Narada Muni. Which mantra was that? Perform austerities, made a form of the Lord. Narada Muni just did not tell him, chant Hare Krishna, chant the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya mantra. He also told them to make a form of the Lord with mud and water. So Dhruva, when he went to the forest, he made a form of the Lord of mud and water. So the Lord is not impersonal. The Lord is worshipped in his Archa Vigraha form. And this Archa Vigraha form is non-different from the Lord. So Dhruva, on the one hand, he was chanting the mantra. On the other hand, he was fixed in his meditation at the lotus feet of the Lord. And along with that, he performed austerities. Of course, we don't have to follow the extreme austerities of Dhruva Maharaj. If we were to try to follow, we would probably fail. We eat 3 times a day. Dhruva was eating once every 3 days. What did he eat in the first month? Fruits and berries. But you'll say, oh, that's pretty good. Mangoes, apples. But he was not eating mangoes and apples. He was eating fruits and berries that are eaten by the monkeys. In the second month, he ate every 6 days. So he became so powerful by his austerities. And eventually, he had darshan of the Supreme Lord. And when he had darshan of the Lord, he was constantly meditating on the Lord. And the Lord was so pleased by his meditation. He was just a 5-year-old boy. He was so pleased by his meditation that the Lord finally manifested himself in front of him. And Dhruva got such immense pleasure. But when he saw the form of the Lord, he got pleasure, but he also felt embarrassed. Why did he feel embarrassed? This is the important thing to debate. He felt embarrassed because he had manifested a certain desire from the Lord. And what was that desire? He wanted to have a planet that was superior to any of his predecessors. His father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. He wanted that, a planet. And Krishna rewarded him by giving him the Dhruva Lok or pole star, a planet that never gets dissolved. So Dhruva felt embarrassed Did he have that form, that desire? So Krishna says in the 7th chapter, people come to me due to 4 factors. Chaturveda bhajantimam. One is who wants money. The other is one who is in distress. Third is the inquisitive, and then the genuine seeker of knowledge. Of all these 4, who does Krishna say is the best? One who comes to me as a result of transcendental knowledge. In other words, one who comes to me with a niskam bhav. So the highest level of service to Krishna is when you just want to serve without expecting anything in return. The general concept of religion is God is my order supplier. Whatever I wish, God must supply, isn't it? And if God doesn't supply, then there's something wrong with this process. But the devotee's understanding is, let me just serve the Lord, birth after birth. Even if He tramples me to death, He shall remain my only worshipper Lord, unconditionally. Unconditionally, not conditionally. Unconditionally means, whatever may happen, I'm not going to give up my devotional service. So a higher realization of Krishna consciousness, the initial understanding may be, I want to become Krishna conscious, I want to get this desire, and this can only be achieved if I have Krishna's mercy. But a higher realization is, I want to serve the Lord without expecting anything in return. I want to engage in pure devotional service. Sarve punsam paro dharmo yato bhakti yadhokshaje ahito kya pratiyata ye atma supra sidati. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you read the story of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, the spiritual grandfather of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was such an advanced devotee. He would never ask anyone for anything. If someone gave him some milk to drink, he would drink. Otherwise he would go hungry. So once he had completed the Govardhan Parikram, and he was just resting. When you do the Govardhan Parikram, you have that place, Madhavendra Puri Bathak, where a very beautiful cowherd boy came and told him, it appears that you are hungry, great sage. Take this milk. I'm going to milk the cows. I'll come back and take this pot. Madhavendra Puri had never seen such a beautiful boy. He drank the milk. He waited for the cowherd boy to come. But he never came and he fell asleep. And in that sleep, he dreamt that boy was none else but the Supreme Lord. The Lord dragged him by his finger and told him, Madhavendra Puri, I lie buried over here, please rescue me. And in the dream, he saw the same boy, and he discovered that that boy was none else but Krishna. So Madhavendra Puri felt so embarrassed that he took service from Krishna. So Dhruva Maharaj was feeling embarrassed that he did all these austerities, but he had a goal to get a planet that could exceed the glories of even Brahma's planet. And Krishna gave him the benediction. And he ruled over the planet for 36,000 years. This pastime, as Prabhupada explains, took place in Satya-yuga. Now, Dhruva is returning home. When Dhruva left the palace and went to the forest, his father was very sad. His father said, because of my excessive attachment to my second wife, Surichi, my beloved son, when he tried to sit on my lap, I stopped him. The father was wondering, my son has gone in the forest He may have been eaten by some animals. His life may be in danger. But then Narada Muni appeared on the scene. Narada Muni Sri Kalagya. He knows past, present and future. He always shows up at the right time. So Narada Muni appeared on the scene and said, "No, don't worry. Your son is a very exalted devotee. The animals will not be able to harm him." So the father was relieved of his anxiety. But the father was feeling sorry. He remembered that one day my son tried to sit on my lap and I kept quiet when my wife, Surichi, chastised him. So the father was feeling sorry that because of his excessive attachment to his young wife, he tolerated his son being insulted. So excessive attachment is a drawback on the spiritual path. So King Uttanapad got the message that Dhruva was coming home, and he, along with his queen's son and all the ministers, went to receive me, just like Lord Ram returning from exile. When Lord Ram was returning from exile, everyone went to receive Lord Ram. So here we see that Dhruva is returning. Dhruva is coming back, and his father took the entire administration along with his wives and son to receive Dhruva. Now, in this, and the queens were carried in a palanquin. These days, if you're a rich man, you drive a Mercedes or an expensive car. But in the Vedic days, the kings were carried in a palanquin, not everyone. Palanquin was not for ordinary people. It was only for the royal family, just like King Rahugana was being carried in a palanquin, and King Rahugana was going to hear a discourse in Kapil Ashram. So that was the tradition, that if you were a king or someone from the royal family, you'd be carried in a palanquin. So Suniti, the mother of Dhruva, she was very compassionate. Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Queen Suniti, out of her great compassion, she was the mother of a great Vaishnava. She took her co-wife Surichi and Uttama on the same palanquin. She could have said, "Hey, you insulted my son. That's why my son had to go to the forest and practice all these austerities." But she didn't do like that. Rather, she made Surichi sit on the same palanquin, gave her full honor along with her son Uttama, and they went to receive Dhruva. So Prabhupada specifies in the purport, Suniti, out of her great compassion, being the mother of a great Vaishnava, did not hesitate to take her co-wife Surichi on the same palanquin. So there are two important things that come out here. One is, a devotee is compassionate, daya ka bhav. And the other is, a devotee is forgiving, shama. These two characteristics are very important if you want to progress in spiritual life. One is forgiving. A devotee should be very forgiving. A devotee should not be revengeful. In material life they say tit for tat. In Hindi it is Nele Pedela. In Russian they say Zuba Zub. So tit for tat. You do something, I'm going to do something. You cheat me, I cheat you. So tit for tat. But a devotee doesn't believe in tit for tat. Just like we see the glorious example of King Yudhishthira. After, in the battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra virtually lost. He lost all his relatives, sons, grandsons, everyone. And after the battle, when Yudhishthira was installed on the throne, he could easily have taken revenge, isn't it? He could easily have said, you tried to kill us when we were young, now we are in power, we're going to hang you. But he didn't. Rather, Yudhishthira said, I'm very sorry that you lost all your sons and grandsons. And he gave him a very nice palace to live in. The palace was so nice, the facilities were so convenient that Dhritarashtra began to think, at last I'll become a king. But he didn't take any revenge. We also saw in Prabhupada's own life, once somebody had insulted Prabhupada at a public function. It was a public function. This was in Montreal, Canada, in '68. Prabhupada gave a lecture, and there was an Indian man. The rest of the audience was all Christian missionaries. He severely insulted Prabhupada. Why do you have to speak this philosophy in this Christian country? Prabhupada was just quiet. But then as he was leaving that city after a few months, he called that individual and blessed him. And Prabhupada said very humbly, I must have done something to him in my last life for which he took revenge. So that's the nature of a Vaishnava. He is very forgiving. He doesn't hold grudges. You did this to me 10 years ago, so I'm going to take revenge. A Vaishnava is very forgiving. So Suniti also, she was forgiving. Shama. She is not retaliating. She gave Surichi full respect. The other point that's mentioned here is compassion, karuna. A devotee is very compassionate. And what is the real meaning of compassion? Compassion means when you see someone in distress, you get concerned. When you see someone acting against the teachings of the Lord, you know he's going to suffer. You feel compassionate. Just like we see Prahlad Maharaj saying in the 7th canto, I'm not worried about my own liberation, but I'm worried about those who are trying to convert a position of distress to a position of comfort. So therefore, in spite of heavy situation that he was in, guards guarding him, etc., Prahlad was still preaching. So this karuna or compassion is one of the qualities of a Vaishnava. Lord Chaitanya listed 26 qualities that a Vaishnava should cultivate. He explained this to Sanatana Goswami, and this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 26 qualities that a Vaishnava should cultivate. And one of the qualities is compassion. So Vaishnava should be very compassionate. And in our scriptures, There's so many wonderful examples. Just like Lord Chaitanya had a devotee called Vasudeva Datta. Vasudeva Datta's glories are so magnanimous. The Lord Chaitanya said, I need thousands of tongues to fully glorify the wonderful transcendental qualities of Vasudeva Datta. Vasudeva Datta is considered to be an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. So Vasudeva Datta once went to the Lord and said, my dear Lord, I want to ask you for a benediction. The Lord said, okay, whatever Krishna desires, whatever you desire, Krishna will fulfill, because your desires are all pure. And what was Vasudeva Datta's desire? That everyone else may be liberated and he may take on and suffer the sinful reactions due to everyone. Bhakti Siddhantaji explains that Vasudeva Datta was even more compassionate than Jesus Christ. He said, take everyone back to Godhead and I will suffer the sinful reaction due to everyone. Of course, you may say, but I'm not at the level of Prahlad Maharaj. I'm not at the level of compassion of Vasudeva Datta. We know we are not at that level. But by hearing about these great devotees, we will also get the inspiration to follow in their footsteps. Just like in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam, you read the story of King Rantideva. He had once fasted for a period of 48 days. He was about to break his fast. Rantideva was noted to be very magnanimous and compassionate. So the demigods wanted to test him. So one of them became first a hungry Brahmana. The king had some foodstuff made of milk and water that he and his wife were about to break their fast. And as they were about to eat, a Brahmana came. My dear king, it's your responsibility to take care of us. I'm hungry. Give me some food to eat. The king parted. Then he was about to eat, another person came. Then a Chandala came with dogs. Finally, there was nothing left but just some water. And when he was about to drink that water, a thirsty man came to his palace and said, King, I'm thirsty. Give me something to eat. And Rantideva parted with that. And then he offered a very wonderful prayer to the Lord. Nakamaya ham gatam Ishwarat param. He said, my dear Lord, I don't want anything, but I just want to take on the suffering due to everyone. And you may take everyone back to God and transfer the suffering to me. So that is compassion. So compassion means you feel sorry when you see people misusing their intelligence. And the true compassion is giving people knowledge of God. Once Prabhupada was giving a lecture in Rishikesh. And Prabhupada, as we know, would speak very strongly, fools, rascals, muras. And Krishna uses the word mura. So there was an American lady in the audience. She said, Swamiji, sadhu should not speak so strongly. So Prabhupada said, when you have a boil with pus, do you blow that boil to get rid of the pus? Or do you press the boil to get rid of the pus? What do you do? Press. So the truth has to be spoken, but it has to be spoken boldly. But politely. Just like Bhagavad Gita describes the austerities of the tongue. One of the austerities of the tongue is to speak words that are truthful. So we should speak the truth. But speak it in a palatable manner. Not in an unpalatable manner. Oh, you fool, you rascal. You can correct him in a palatable way. It will have far more effect. So, forgiveness and compassion. These are two essential qualities of a Vaishnava. In the example of Haridas Thakur, as you know, Haridas Thakur was dragged through 22 marketplaces. Why was he dragged through 24 marketplaces? Why? Because he was chanting the holy name which the Mahamdan rulers could not bear. So when Haridas would not stop chanting, the Qazi said, "Now, punish this man! Drag him through different marketplaces and go on flogging him. Normally, their experience was they would flog a person, and by the time he would reach the second or the third market, he would be dead. That was the statistical data. But Haridas Thakur, they had to drag him through 22 marketplaces. He was still alive, chanting. And those who were flogging him were worried. Now what's going to happen to them? So Haridas, look at his compassion and forgiveness. He was not worried about his own survival. He was thinking, oh, what will happen to these people if I don't die? So he pretended as if he was dead. And then they were very happy. And they went back to the king and said, "He's dead! At last he's dead!" The king said, "Okay, give him Muslim burial." But the Chand Qazi, who was like his advisor, he said, "No! He cannot be given a Muslim burial. This man was so sinful. Throw him in the Ganga." Then he was thrown in the Ganga and he swam across and then he started chanting again. So when the king finally heard that this Haridas is still alive, he came and apologized for what he had done. But look at Haridas's compassion. So, a Vaishnava must be compassionate and forgiving. And this quality of compassion develops as we chant the holy name, as we execute devotional service. You develop the quality of compassion. And a Vaishnava develops this quality in the association of devotees. Just like in that story of Mrigari the hunter. Mrigari the hunter was getting so much pleasure in killing animals. But by Narada Muni's association, he became so purified that he would not even step over an ant. So true compassion is displayed when we preach. And a Vaishnava is para dukha dukhi. Seeing others in distress, he also becomes distressed. That is the nature of a Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, he was very compassionate. Very compassionate. There was no reason for Prabhupada to go at his old age to the West, isn't it? When Prabhupada went to Srimad Maharaj, she said, "Swamiji, in this old age you're going to go to America? You should just stay here." Prabhupada had never seen ice before in his life. But he went in his old age only because he had compassion for the suffering humanity. Even in times when he was physically unwell, Prabhupada did not stop his translation work. Why didn't he stop his translation work? Because he wanted to leave behind literature that can guide society for the next 10,000 years. That's why even when he was physically unwell, and when doctors told him to take rest, Prabhupada never stopped his translation work. So from taking the example of Prabhupada, we can see how compassionate he was to save the conditioned souls. So we should also cultivate the quality of compassion. And because of this quality of compassion, we go on and preach Krishna consciousness, we go on and distribute books, we have various festivals, etc. We go on Harinam because we want people to hear the holy name and make spiritual benefit. So we may have no compassion at the moment, but if you chant the holy name sincerely, if you stay in the association of devotees, if you engage in devotional service, then compassion will develop. And even if it has not developed, if we just recognize, I'm fool number one, I should just do what Guru Sadhu Shastra is saying, you'll be saved. When Lord Chaitanya was questioned by the Mayavadi sannyasis, you're such a prominent Sanskrit scholar, why don't you sit down with us and study the Vedanta? Lord Chaitanya said, what did he say? My spiritual master considered me to be a fool and said, all you're capable of doing is just chant the holy name. So we may have no compassion. We may be thinking, let those people go to hell, who cares for them? But if we just follow in the footsteps of Prabhupada and our acharyas, and recognizing that I'm fool number one, follow them, that by following their footsteps, you begin to develop compassion. So karuna, compassion, must be there. And at the same time, we should be forgiving. So to summarize, I have to go now. So to summarize these verses, we are reading in the Bhagavatam that Dhruva Maharaj is now returning home. His father was overjoyed when he heard that his son was coming back. The whole entourage of his father, he went to receive Dhruva Maharaj. And Suniti was so compassionate, she took her co-wife Surichi along with her in a palanquin to receive Dhruva. And Dhruva, when he returned, he was respectful to both. Prabhupada explains that Surichi did not know that Dhruva was such an exalted devotee. So when you serve an exalted devotee, you get benefit. And when you offend an exalted devotee, you also get the reaction. So on the spiritual path, one is advised to avoid what? Vaishnava, aparadha of all types. And Suniti was the mother of this great Vaishnava, Dhruva. So by hearing about Dhruva Maharaj, by meditating on Dhruva Maharaj, by meditating on his determination, you see how determined Dhruva was to pursue spiritual life. Nada Muni tested him, but he was still determined. So similarly, to succeed in the spiritual path, whether you're brahmachari or grihastha or vanaprastha or sannyas, what do you need? Determination. Without determination, you can't succeed in the spiritual path. Nishtha. And how do you get this nishtha? What does Rupa Goswami say? By practicing bhajana kriya. Many times devotees want to know, how do I develop nishtha? How do I become kripalu? How do I become compassion? How do I develop forgiveness, shama? All these qualities can develop by bhajana kriya. So the key to spiritual advancement is good sadhana and bhajan kriya. And when Krishna sees is sincerely endeavoring, then he gives you the intelligence by which you can succeed spiritually. So, attentive hearing is also very important. That's why in the Bhagavatam it is said, Nasta prayesho badresho nityam bhagavad sevaya bhagavati utma shloke bhakti bhavati nasagi. So not only do we attentively hear the holy name, we attentively hear the Srimad Bhagavatam also. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा। आज हरि नाम संकीर्तन 2 बजे दोपहर में गेट नंबर 2 से प्रारंभ होगा। सभी भक्तों से प्रार्थना है कि समय पर पहुंच जाएं।
ये हरि नाम कौन मधुमंगल वगैरह लेके जा रहे हैं? मधुमंगल 2 ये हरि नाम वीकली हरि नाम। आप में से कितने भक्त जो कि हर हफ्ते इस हरि नाम में जाते हो? प्रभुपाद जी ने इस संस्था की स्थापना की हरि नाम के माध्यम से। प्रभुपाद जी जाते थे टॉम्किंस क्रेज पार्क में हरि नाम करने के लिए। तो ये हरि नाम की जो सेवा है बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण सेवा है। कई बार भक्तों को लगता है ये हरि नाम तो केवल नए भक्तों के लिए, हम तो पुराने भक्त हो गए हैं, हमारे लिए नहीं है। पर ये हरि नाम सबके उद्धार के लिए है। तो आप सब, अगर आपकी कोई आवश्यक अपॉइंटमेंट, असल में अगर ये वीकली हरि नाम है, वीकली हरि नाम, तो आप लोग को वीकली शेड्यूल ऐसे बनाना चाहिए कि थर्सडे आफ्टरनून सब फ्री हो जाएं हरि नाम के लिए। कई बार हमारे विदेशों में भी हरि नाम पार्टी, जैसे लंदन में एक गली है ऑक्सफोर्ड स्ट्रीट, तो जब से इस्कॉन की स्थापना हुई है इंग्लैंड में, ऑक्सफोर्ड स्ट्रीट में हर शनिवार रात को भक्त हरि नाम में जाते हैं। और हर शनिवार रात को कम से कम 100 भक्त होते हैं जो सब जगह से आते हैं हरि नाम में जाने के लिए। तो आप लोग को ये दिल्ली मंदिर को हरि नाम पर इतना बल देना चाहिए कि जो वीकली हरि नाम है आपका वीरवार को, उसमें 30-40 भक्त होने चाहिए, और ज़्यादा हो तो और भी अच्छा है। और आज किधर जा रहे हो? तो अलग अलग स्थानों में जाते हैं। तो आप सब, अगर कोई आवश्यक अपॉइंटमेंट हो तो अलग बात है, पर अगर आपको ऐसे लगे हम तो ऊंचे पद में हैं या हरि नाम तो नए भक्तों में हैं, तो वैसा भाव नहीं रखना चाहिए। ये तो भगवान की कृपा है कि हम भक्तों को हरि नाम में जुड़ने का मौका मिल रहा है। आप सब जाइए, जाओगे हरि नाम में? मधुमंगल प्रभु कह रहे थे कि कई बार हरि नाम में जाते हैं पर इतने भक्त नहीं आते हैं। अगर आपके पास कोई महत्वपूर्ण सेवा है तो अलग बात है, नहीं तो हमें हरि नाम में जरूर जुड़ना चाहिए। दिस इज नोन एज द हरे कृष्णा मूवमेंट, है ना, मतलब हरि नाम की संस्था है, तो सबको जाना चाहिए। एक प्रश्न ये है, वी शुड हैव कंपैशन, व्हाट कैन ISKCON डू टू शो कंपैशन टू स्ट्रीट काउज? हाँ, इनका प्रश्न है कि हम सब में दया की भावना होनी चाहिए, और हम क्या करें जब हम गाय माता को, गायों को देखें सड़क में। बड़े दुख की बात है कि गायों की सुरक्षा के लिए बहुत कम सुविधा है भारत में। तो हमें गौशाला खोलने चाहिए, पर गौशाला खोलने के लिए ज़मीन चाहिए, और जितना हो सके ISKCON इज डूइंग गाय सेवा। कई गौशाला है इंग्लैंड में, ISKCON का एक गौशाला है, पूरा एयर कंडीशन गौशाला है, क्योंकि वो गौशाला बना था 3 मिलियन पाउंड के खर्चे पर। 3 मिलियन पाउंड मतलब कि कोई $6 मिलियन, मतलब कि कोई 40 करोड़ का, क्योंकि हमारे भक्त इंग्लैंड में दिखाना चाहते थे पूरे यूरोप और पश्चिम देश की प्रजा को कि गाय की कैसी सुरक्षा होनी चाहिए। तो भारत में भी इस्कॉन के कई गौशाला हैं, हाँ, वृंदावन में है, मायापुर में है, और आपके बहादुरगढ़ में एक छोटी गौशाला है, और ज़मीन मिल जाए तो हम और गौशाला भी खोलने को तैयार हैं। ओके, तो आज के श्लोक के तात्पर्य में आपको सुनीति के करुणा भाव का ज्ञान मिलता है। किस प्रकार जब ध्रुव महाराज लौट रहे थे, वो पलकी में गए ध्रुव महाराज के स्वागत करने के लिए सुरीचि के साथ, है ना। तो प्रभुपाद जी कहते हैं सुनीति में करुणा का भाव था। तो हम सब भक्तों को ये करुणा का भाव अनुकूल करना चाहिए, और ये अनुकूल होगा अगर आप अच्छी तरह साधना रखोगे और भजन क्रिया करोगे और शास्त्र पढ़ोगे, भक्तों के संग में रहोगे, तो फिर ये करुणा का भाव भी अनुकूल होगा। और ये जो प्रचार की सेवा है, ये एक उदाहरण है जिसके द्वारा आप करुणा का भाव प्रस्तुत कर रहे हो। जब आप हरिनाम में जाते हो, ये भी एक उदाहरण, दूसरा उदाहरण है। अब हरिनाम में इतनी शक्ति है, अगर कोई हंसते हुए भी कह दे देखो ये पागल हरे कृष्ण वाले आ गए, तो उनको लाभ मिलेगा। और हरिनाम में इतनी शक्ति है, कोई हरिनाम को सुन ले, और भारत में तो हरिनाम की महिमा लोग जानते हैं, तो हरिनाम को सुन ले, इससे उनका आध्यात्मिक जीवन आरंभ हो जाता है। और मेरे ख्याल से 1 तारीख को रथ यात्रा है गुड़गांव में, और 2 को है ईस्टर। मैं तो इधर नहीं होऊंगा, मैं जलंधर जा रहा हूँ रथ यात्रा के लिए। पर आप सबसे निवेदन है, गुड़गांव रथ यात्रा में सब जाओगे, गुड़गांव का प्रचार बहुत आवश्यक है। आप सब भक्त जाना गुड़गांव रथ यात्रा में और ईस्टर की रथ यात्रा में। साधु हृदय सब जाएंगे? आप लोग जाओगे रथ यात्रा में? ओके, हरे कृष्ण।
ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, जगत गुरु शिल प्रभुपाद की, शिल गोपाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी महाराज की।